And we're live, broadcasting from the shadows of New York City. We are in Music Matters with Jason Tramm. We're delighted that you could join us for a unique podcast community where we explore the issues and challenges of the performing arts world as seen through the eyes of distinguished colleagues. Thank you so much for helping our community grow. We recently hit 1,430 subscribers as of today, and we're so delighted that you can be here and join us. Please remember to subscribe on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on our upcoming guests and topics. And we have a wonderful roster of guests coming in the next couple of months, so please check us out. To see our 157 past episodes, you can go on our website at www.jasontram.net. Again, that's www.jasontram.net. We have a wonderful guest today. We have Maestro Phillip Cheah with us today, and Phillip is a conductor, vocalist, pianist, teacher, and he does all of these things equally well. He was born in the United States and raised in Singapore, and he's currently based in New York City, and leads a very busy life. He's been hailed by the New York Times for his warm tone and carefully calibrated blend from his choirs, and he's currently in the third season with the Central City Chorus and one of New York City's finest avocational choirs. He's conducted New Music New York, the Kerdorian Vocal Ensemble, I got that wrong, Amuse, and C4 Choral, composer and conductors collective. He's a wonderful singer as well with a beautiful, massive range, and he's done a lot of great virtual projects over the break, and those have been all over social media, which we very much appreciate. And he's an accomplished pianist as well. So a dynamic artist. We're delighted he's here. Welcome, Phillip.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for having me.
So glad you can join us today. I've been following your work for many years, but we haven't met in person, so it's great to meet you over the airwaves.
Likewise.
So tell us about your upbringing. Did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
Yes and no. I grew up in Singapore, as you had mentioned, and it's not really something that my parents had wanted me to do. Although legend has it that when they took me to a piano shop when I was like 3 or 4, I started like playing the keys, and so they're like, "Oh, let's give him piano lessons." So I had piano training as a kid. Did some Suzuki violin as well. And actually hated them both so much that I thought I would not continue with music. If you had told me when I was, 10 that I would be a musician, I would be like, but I remember taking a music history class when I was 12 and was hooked. Suddenly music had a whole context, and composers, and stories, and everything came to life. And I got hooked in theory as well. So that made me think about, more about music as a thing rather than just this abstract whatnot. In middle school, I joined my middle school band and choir. I even
What was your instrument in the band?
I played flute, tuba, and xylophone. Yeah, it's kind of not many people got to jump around with different instruments like that. So I felt like that gave me a kind of an exposure to different things and made me really excited about what instruments do and how they sound in the band. I also sang in my school choir too, so that kind of got me interested in singing and connecting as well.
Did you have a good musical experience in Singapore? Was it a good educational program?
I did. Yeah, we have a Yamaha system, which is Japanese-based, but also Singapore was a British colony. So a lot of stuff has a lot of British connections. So I did a lot of stuff with the Associated Board of School of Music, ABRSM. And the Royal Schools of Music also has a big program there as well. So I did a lot of my exams through them. And actually, when I was looking for college, I thought about going to England to study because it would have made sense from a pedagogical point of view to do that. But being an American citizen, I figured coming to the US would be a better move from that standpoint too. So. But yeah, it was a fantastic education from that point.
And how old were you when you came back to the United States?
So I came back for college, ostensibly, when I was 19, and I've been back ever since. So I've now passed my 23rd year back in the U.S. So I've now lived in the U.S. longer than when I grew up over there, as it were. Yeah.
Have you spent that whole time in New York City?
No. I went to Indiana University for college. And had planned to go somewhere else for grad school, but I spent my penultimate semester in Vienna studying abroad. And so I decided to just stay on in IU to do choral conducting for grad school. And I taught in Vermont for a year after that, the Putney School, boarding school there. And then moved to New York later that summer and have been here ever since. So I'm so sorry. My cat is.
We got a great quote in the text. Someone's like, "I love the cat in the background. Oh my god!" And it got some emojis. So your cat's a star.
So I've been in New York since the summer of '03.
Nothing like the big city. I've been in the suburbs of New York my entire life, and I just love New York, and I love the energy, and can't wait to see the musical activities to just come back to roaring back to life.
Me too. I hope the pandemic has been really just cruel on so many different levels, obviously, but with New York being such the pulse, of the world, I think on some level. On so many different fronts, artistically, financially, and whatnot. So I'm also very excited to see Broadway's coming back in October, and friends are starting to book gigs, so that's great too. And my cat's also apparently excited about the fact that we're
give us your cat's name. We got to give a shout out to
Oreo.
the cat. Oreo.
Yeah. she turns 9 tomorrow, so early birthday for her. Yeah.
So tell us about the groups you work with in New York, and give us your affiliations. I know I said Kedorian wrong, but now I know it's Kedorian Ensemble. So
yeah, Kedorian. Kedor is actually Welsh for musician. It's one of the many avocational choirs in the city, and I sang with them briefly when I first came to the city under Christina Berger, who's a fantastic conductor and singer. And then I also guest conducted them once in a while as well. Currently, I have 2 groups that I conduct. Central City Chorus, which is a mixed ensemble. I've just finished my 11th season with them. And Amuse Singers, which is a women's chamber group. I officially have finished 3 years of them, but I've been conducting them on and off since 2010 as well. And then I also freelance in the city. I sing at St. Luke in the Fields down in the village. I'm a professional singer in that church as well. And like I said, I freelance all the city. I've done stuff with the Philharmonic. I've done stuff at Carnegie Hall. Whatever I can do to make money as a musician.
Isn't that what's exciting about being in music? There's so much opportunity. I do a lot of different things too, and I patch it together, and I just love all of them because each one makes me better at the other indirectly.
Exactly. Actually, when people ask what I do, I tell them I'm a musician. I conduct and I sing and I play, and I feel that makes me a much more holistic person and musician as well. And I think that as a singer, I bring those skills to my conducting as well. Because I think, call me crazy, but I think if you're going to conduct singers, you should at least know how to sing, or at least what that entails.
Got to know the mechanism, how to fix problems, because we're always kind of changing vowel. Everyone's got a unique approach to vowels. And,
So, and I think my conducting makes me a better, pianist as well. So, everything we do as a musician is in many ways being an educator. So I think the act of teaching is equally important too. So I fully believe in kind of a multidisciplinary, holistic, view towards music, rather than just saying I'm a conductor or I'm a singer. Has its ups and downs. Some people like to make sure that you're pigeonholed as one thing only, and they get really weird about the fact that you're more than one thing. But I'm like, I went to school for music. I didn't go to school for, one thing. So
it's a good point.
Yeah.
And we have so much to offer, and these days it's very hard to do just one thing. I did one thing for a while when I was doing opera, and then the economy crashed in 2009, and then now it's just good to be able to do a lot of things, especially when it also gives you a diversity of thought, and you can do always be expanding in different areas.
Indeed, and also you get to meet so many people. I mean, as you know, a lot of what we do in life is who you happen to know and where and when. And I think networking is never a bad thing, but also you get to, part of what we do as musicians, as artists, is really to express what we have as a society, as a race, and bring them out to people. And I think, and meeting all these people and getting to know different stories, different walks of life, different, identities, that only enriches us as people and as musicians. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to be doing everything I'm doing to just lead as enriching a life as I can. So
it's always a joy to be in this artistic life, even when times are the hardest. Like we'll get into the COVID chapter next. You're a tireless advocate in all of your repertoire for modern composers. Mm-hmm. Did you always know you were going to focus on modern composers in your creative output?
No, I actually have my professor Carmen Tejas, who's now at Notre Dame, to thank for. She ran the contemporary vocal ensemble, which is now known as Notice at IU. Dominic DiOrio does that group now. But she really opened my eyes, and all my teachers there too, but to the contemporary world and how, we always think of classical music as being Mozart and Brahms and even Stravinsky, but they were popular music. They were contemporary music of their time. So and in many ways, modern music and contemporary music is our lifeblood because it has to continue, right?
Otherwise, it becomes a museum piece, and it just sits there dusty on a shelf, and can people easily let it go.
Exactly. And I don't compose myself, so I love the ability to look at a piece and deconstruct it and get in kind of the mind of the composer. I love working with composers because that you get to have a sense of like what they're thinking, and trying to translate what they've written on the page and in their head into something that's out there into the world. Because
I always tell my undergraduates, it's much harder to do with Beethoven. You have to have a seance, and that's very difficult, a challenge.
Yeah, but by the same token, I challenge my colleagues and my singers. I did the Mozart Requiem a few years ago with Central City Chorus, and I said, this is a piece that so many of you know so well. Ironically enough, it was my first time conducting it, and I only sung it a few times before that. But I said, think of it as if Mozart, the ink is still fresh on the page. What if this had just been written? What can you glean from this piece, and what can you bring up that's new, that's refreshing? And it really opened their eyes to that. The first time someone said, "This sounds like a piece of chamber music," that's written for a bigger force. I'm like, that's exactly it. And I think it's really imperative that we look at music always with fresh perspectives, always with fresh eyes, that nothing becomes staid or passe.
That's what the conductor does, right? It's our job to bring a freshness and a new approach, our own approach. Mm-hmm. And when you're a conductor, you're always right? That's the in front of your ensemble. But that's the thing, is always bring your expertise and kind of new life to something. And that's what keeps music so interesting. Even music of Mozart and older, it keeps it fresh and new and current. And you always add something new.
But also authentic too, And I think what I like to do in my programming, especially even when I sing or conduct, is to try to always find repertoire that bridges the gap. Like I did a program once of Palestrina and Bruckner, because I found that the two of them have simpatico, even though you wouldn't think of them in the same breath. But Bruckner, in many ways, is a Palestrina living in the 19th century. And I remember my singers were like, I don't know why we're doing this program. And as we started rehearsing, they're like, oh my gosh. They started to blur in their minds who was who, because they started to see all the connective tissue between the two composers.
They certainly would like each other. I think they would certainly be fascinated to sit down with each other and talk about great Catholic music. Right?
Indeed, yeah. So
we got the great Reformation, the anti-Reformation composer and the great innovator. And I just love taking Bruckner, and you take these massive symphonies, you boil them down to like 3 minutes, and you've got these incredible anthems that, striking harmonic changes and challenge vocally. And I just love those Bruckner motets.
Yeah. Those motets are equally monumental as his symphonies any day, and probably a Schenkerian dream too.
Amazing analysis. Tell us about your other programming, some of the composers who you've championed, and what you've learned by delving into these new composers.
Yeah, so I've been really fortunate to work with a bunch of people like Frank J. O'Terry, Jonathan David, Martha Sullivan, Melissa Dunphy. I just commissioned last year with my women's ensemble Muse. And what's been really cool is, composers. I was just telling a friend the other day that I don't compose, but if I would look at a blank piece of paper and trying to just envision something, I mean, I can't even begin to fathom how you look at this blank piece of paper and something comes out of that. So I think the creative process is so magical to me, to be able to conceptualize something in your head that's so abstract, right? And then to put it down on paper in some sort of nomenclature that then I and other people have to interpret and find a way to kind of be in line with their vision, but also maybe take it a step further, if at all. So, working with O'Terry or Dunphy or Jonathan David, it is given me a huge insight into how people think of music, and how their lives and their experiences and their philosophies also inform the way they approach, whether it's text or they approach the way they write a line. And also it's then fun to also then go through the kind of the editing process and go, well, this maybe doesn't work quite as well with the group than what it is, and finding the sort of practical approach to the way the ideas come out on paper. And it really, I think, makes them a better composer as well. It makes me a better musician because we have this communication about how ideas come about on paper and then developed into the real world, And then sometimes you go through all that process and then you sing something, you play something and go, oh, maybe this might be a better way of going around that. And that's part of the discovery process, which is so cool as well.
It's amazing when a composer puts pen to paper and then it comes alive in front of you, and you get to work with that composer. And I always find it fascinating to watch how a piece changes as it comes to life. And sometimes the composers are surprised, and they're like, it's just a great process.
Yes, and of course it comes to life, through my interpretation, and then it becomes a different piece with someone else too, or with a different group. Sometimes the same piece with the same conductor, but with a different group, can be a different piece altogether as well. So I think that speaks to the organic nature of what we do, right? We live in such an age of recordings and preservation of performances that in many ways antithetical to the idea of what a performance is. A performance is never meant to be captured and frozen in time, nor was it meant to be an ideal or perfect, sort of template. And I think part of the joy of live performances, of any performance really, is to the process of discovery in the moment, and then it's gone. It's off in the ether, and then becomes something new again, something fresh for someone to approach. So I love recording, to get me wrong. I mean, I think that's something to be said about that ideal as well. But I think, the act of performing constantly is always an act of discovery, an act of birth, an act of delivery, and then discovering again. So
I was doing a tour of Traviata, and I've conducted Traviata at least 30, 40 times. And every time you do it on tour, that music just moves me in a way as an opera conductor and working with the singers. Every time I've done it was with a different cast pretty much, and every time's a different orchestra. And, it's amazing how even a piece that everybody knows can be so incredibly different. And it's such a subtle shading here and there, and a different singer and a different conductor and a different orchestra. And it's just, that's what makes it fascinating, is how
indeed.
These works have a life.
And we get older, they get older too, so you bring that experience into your performance. The context could be different too. I mean, doing Traviata now, after the pandemic, there's an emotional slant to that you cannot replicate before, and I'm sure that gives a whole new meaning to being able to enjoy the performance as well. The fact that Violetta gets sick, I mean, all those meta different levels. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what it's like to play someone who's sick in an opera, having faced what we just faced in the last 15 months.
Yeah, tuberculosis and certainly synchronicities there.
Yeah, indeed.
So tell us about how I've talked to 157 people about the COVID process and the effect on the art. Yeah. And I like to say that we've all become philosophers during COVID, right? We've all had to become philosophers. We've had so much more time to think about our lives and our art.
Indeed.
And you've taking away the thing we've been known for years and for decades, and the art that we've been perfected. What is it like, and how did you deal with the pandemic, and what have you learned about yourself in this process?
It's been fascinating to inhabit myself for such a long time, if I can say that, because, I wear so many different hats. And one of the things as a conductor is that, which I think a lot of people may not realize offhand, is that we spend, as conductors, so much of our time by ourselves, right? We prepare the music, we analyze it, we think about stuff. And then we go out and we get the energy from the rehearsals, from the performance of the audience, and we have that interaction with people. But that's a smaller proportion than the time you spend by yourself learning the music. So that alone time, in some odd way, was not foreign to me. Like, I'm used to that. What I was not expecting was how much I actually needed that 40% of the interaction with my colleagues, with the
humans,
audience.
Artists.
Yeah. And I'm an introvert, so I love being by myself. But I realized that I needed to do that. So I found that my singing and piano hats were needing that nourishment a lot more. So that's one of the reasons why I turned to multi-tracking as an artistic and cathartic outlet, if you will.
Is that something you've done before the pandemic, or is that something you innovated during
I had Yes and no. I had toyed with multi-tracking way back, even like 2009 or so. If you dig through the archives of YouTube, you'll find like these audio recordings I sort of put out there just because. Like there's a recording of Spem and Alum, the 40-part Tallis motet that I put out there, which I just did just for fun, really. There was no artistic, thing behind that.
I'm gonna link that in there. That's awesome. You multi-tracked 40 parts. I'm fascinated.
And that was just really, like I said, just me playing around with the fact that I can sing soprano and I can sing bass, so why not do that. But like, I've done it on and off, and I also do that sometimes as a means of like a helpful musical aid for singers if I needed to teach a new piece to people. But with the pandemic, I started to miss. Actually, ironically enough, I started to miss singing at church. I'm not a religious person by any stretch of imagination, but I have a fantastic church job here. I sing at St. Luke of the Fields down in the village, which is a professional nonette, and we do nothing but early music and contemporary music. And we just are.
Those two dovetail so beautifully.
Oh yeah. So I was missing singing with my musical family, as it were. But also, I love Lent. There's something about Lent and Catholic guilt, Christian guilt, that just brings out the best music in people. And when the pandemic hit, we were just in the middle of Lent, I believe. So I was missing that aspect of having that musical catharsis and musical expression. So I started to actually record music from Holy Week that I would be doing. The Julia Fleet Uber Caritas, the John Tavener, Old Tavener, Dum Transistor Sabbatum, and stuff like that. And the whole video part was not something I thought about, but I was seeing virtual choirs becoming a thing back then, and I thought, my choirs may want to start talking about that at some point. And I've dabbled in some videos, but nothing really concrete. So I thought, why not learn how to do that? Learn additional skill. You doing your broadcast right now, that's a prime example of that too. So that is how the whole video component started, and I realized that that's what people consume, right? You consume with your eyes in addition to your ears.
We've all become television producers to an extent. I can't wait to get back to the music director part of it, but it's been fascinating.
Totally. But the thing that I found really amazing about these virtual choir videos that I've been doing is that because it's a virtual platform, to try to sell it as a performance, I needed to find a way to go beyond the screen, right? So I wanted to find a way so that when you're watching my choir performance, that it feels like you're in the audience watching that each person is not just 8 me's, but 8 different people that happen to look like me, selling a piece to you. And I think that there's a psychology that, as a conductor, I find so fascinating, because as conductors, I'll back to the audience. We don't see the audience. We're the only musicians who don't actually produce sound, but we elicit sound, right? So much of what we do is psychological traffic traffic following and traffic directing. So I took that same philosophy towards my virtual choirs, and I thought, is there a way to bring that psychology into the way I produce my videos? Because then I could also help my choirs when they do their videos to do that too. Because you need to sell something through a digital medium. So that's been actually really, really powerful to learn. And I hope to bring that now with my real life singers when I meet them.
What do you think is going to survive from this period as we go forward into the return to live stage performing?
I hope that we talked a lot about inequalities that needed to be addressed, and I really hope that is not just mere talk, but that it becomes a reality. Whether it's things that you didn't think about, like paying our companies a better wage in our choirs, and stuff like that. But I also feel like one of the silver linings of our technological forays this pandemic is to reach an audience that traverses geography, time zones, people that normally would not be able to come here at concert, but want to do that. So I want to try to make that egalitarian aspect of what we do, and continue that in some way. Whether it's live streaming our concerts. Obviously, I think you and I talked about before. We want warm bodies in the seats. We want this nothing like the the intangible magic of interaction with the
Feeling the
audience.
resonance in your body and your
Yeah,
bones.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
beautiful.
and that exchange, that communion, that you have with the audience, both for yourself and also for your ensemble too. But I think to have, like, when I did my broadcast last year with Amuse, we commissioned Melissa Dunphy to write a piece for us to commemorate the centennial of the suffrage vote, and we pivoted to a virtual performance. But in doing so, we were able to have family members and friends of the ensemble from like Chile and Singapore and Argentina, who tuned in, at like 1 a.m. their time to see our piece, and it was amazing. They were so grateful to have this outlet to be able to see their family and friends in doing this. I think I mentioned to you also, like, I have a friend who has MS, who because of all these live streams, is able to now like attend a church service or go see a concert, which she couldn't do before. So I'm hoping that this way of transmitting our performances to reach people will continue in some fashion. Because I think we're such an interconnected world, and the fact that we can do this broadcast for free without any lag. I mean, that's mind-blowing. It blows my mind that I can talk to my family in Singapore through my phone on video call with no lag and for free.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. So, why can't we just continue doing that and reach an audience that may not know who we are, but we get to to gain new audiences, gain new perspectives and whatnot, and who knows, we new sources of income. New donors. I mean, that's always never a
We
bad
always
thing.
have to be thinking, like, how can we move forward? How can we move the art form forward? I think it's amazing how creative the creative professions have become, because we've seen opera singers on TikTok building audiences that way, and we've seen Zoom concerts, we've seen live streaming events, everything across the platform.
Yeah.
What's something you learned about yourself during this period?
I'm not as lazy as I think I am.
You don't sound lazy at all, my friend.
Oh, believe me, it's sometimes a huge effort on my part to try to. I feel like I have a lot more hope than I thought I did. I think in the constant rat race and hustle of being a freelance musician, you sometimes get dejected. I think in the best of times, we barely make ends meet, right? And in this period, we're struggling to figure out how to make things work. But then I realized one day that we are the creative type. If we we are the ones who are supposed to find a way out of a box, who think outside the box and make something out of nothing. So that was very inspiring to know that it's still there. I felt reaffirmed about why I became a musician, an artist, and why I chose to do this artistic endeavor. Whether it's Pollyanna optimism on my part, or whether it's a defense mechanism, survival mechanism, but I think the thing I learned about myself is that this is what I want to do and where I need to be, which is not an easy lesson to come to. I know so many colleagues and friends who have left the industry.
I know a lot too. Both people who were in major orchestras, Broadway performers. I mean, we're going to see it's going to be a very different music industry when we come back.
Yeah. So I feel grateful to have had that time to reflect and affirm what I'm doing. I think that we're always in the process of discovering ourselves and learning about ourselves too. And I think to be able to be a step closer to that goal, even during these dark times, is a blessing. So I have to be grateful for that.
To get to explore music and to make music with live people is such an honor. To get to work with singers and to put their combined talent together into something new it's a blessing in a way. And
it really is.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
So what repertoire do you have on the docket when you come back? What are some pieces you've got your eye on? What are some program kind of concepts maybe? You don't have to give away anything you don't want to give away, but give away some ideas.
So I had this crazy idea over the weekend that I've been kind of just sort of putting together. But I said earlier that I don't know who's still around, And so I wanted to gather my colleagues together and actually do a performance of Spam at Central Park.
Ooh.
The piece itself is about hope, which I think is a fantastic theme, but also it's has a kind of flash mob like sense to that, and also like being in Central Park and just having 40 people come together to do this piece, I think is such a beautiful gift to the community and also to ourselves too. So that's something that I'm kind of working on right now, and we'll see if that works. I mean,
And how exciting
people,
not to have a flash mob Messiah or a flash mob Hallelujah Chorus, but a flash mob Spaminalium. I want to be there. You let me know when and where.
Right, yeah. So that's something I've been sort of playing around with over the weekend. I'm going to be talking to my ensembles about programming too. I think it's nothing concrete in my mind yet, because like I said, I'm still trying to figure out like who's around and what's around to do. But I want to be more mindful of my programs giving voice to communities that maybe I didn't think about a lot more. I've always tried to include a diversity of voices, whether it's women composers or composers of color and whatnot. But I'm always guided by the philosophy that it has to be good music first, music that because I think as much as we want to be conscious of communities and whatnot, but we also have to remember that we are the music is needs to speak to us and to people as well. So that's been a guiding principle of mine.
That's really exciting. There's so many great voices out there. There's so many new voices, but maintaining the quality is really important, that you find the right voices, right? That's the challenge of the conductor. That's why we stay up late. And my favorite thing in the world is studying till 2 a.m, and I'm all alone and it's dark in my house. I have 4 kids, so I raised them. So they're in bed at 10. I'm studying until 2. That's my time.
That's amazing.
And I love that time.
It totally is. I mean, I think as conductors, we have this amazing opportunity to curate music, right? Not necessarily to discard or to include anything, but rather we have at our disposal, the whole canon to figure out like what we want to present to people. I love thematic programming. I don't think it's always necessary to do so, but for me, programming is such a joy too, because it's like I always liken it to being a chef and creating a tasting menu. Now you have your hors d'oeuvres, you have your amuse-bouches, you have your main courses, your dessert, and the audience is there to have a journey through that. And whether or not the theme is obvious or is more subtle, but the audience also is able to kind of peel back layers of things as they go through the concert. So that's something that I think a lot about too when I'm programming. And I'm thinking
musical banquet. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If you were going out to your favorite restaurant, what would that be? What food would it be?
Chinese food is definitely up there, I have to admit. But I'm a gourmand, so really anything goes. I love French. I love Italian. Anything. I have a seafood diet. I see it.
Just like music, just like great music, there's every culture brings something unique and interesting, and that's why bringing in these different voices is so important, because there's so many great stories to tell.
Yeah.
What drew you in specifically to choir music and choral music? What about choral music has inspired and captured you?
So when I was in college, I went to Indiana, like I said, for school, which is a huge opera school, a huge choral school. But I actually went
huge everything school.
Yeah. But I went there for piano. And I wasn't particularly aware of the fact of its huge choral pedigree. And I'd always thought about being an orchestral conductor. That was kind of Karajan was one of my idols growing up, so that was kind of like my trajectory. And being at IU exposed me to choral music, but also to singers, and I did a lot of accompanying of singers when I was there as well. And it sounds weird to say this out loud, but it was only in college that I really realized the power of text married with music and what that does. Because music is such an abstract form, as you know, and the ability to communicate a message to people is such a beautiful gift that we have. But then you've got the addition of text to then have a very visceral connection with people, right? And what words do for people. Words have an impact of themselves. So choral music to me is such the perfect vehicle for marrying both music, but also the inherent music that's in text as well. right? Poetry. Sometimes the best poetry is the worst to set to music because you don't want to interrupt the inherent musicality in the poem. People who set Shakespeare, I think is amazing, because
So many challenges.
Yeah. So
and so rarely does it work really well.
Exactly. So choral music to me is this a unique form where we can work with text, but also singers are the only musicians for whom our bodies are our instrument. If I have a cold, I can still bang out a Mozart piano concerto if I needed to, or play the flute. But if I'm ill, if I've had too much to eat, if I just gave birth, all those affect the way you sing. Being a musician is like being an athlete, and then being a singer is like being an athlete, times 10, because everything that you do makes a difference. How you feel when you woke up that morning will affect how you sing later on, right? So I love working with a body of musicians for whom we're all sharing the same instrument, and that everything that we do, everything that we express bodily, adds to the dimension of what we express with the text. And I think that's the single most unique presence and gift we can give as singers as choral musicians to the world. Not that being instrumentalist is any less, by no means, but I think as a choral singer, to be one of many, and to be both a unit but also an ensemble of individuals at the same time is such an amazing experience.
Don't you wish we could have like our senator, our Congress sing together in a choir? Because isn't it amazing how we gel and we bond with our choirs, and how they gel and bond with each other through the process of making music? You take people from different cultures, different religions, put them together with the musical setting. We all have a common purpose, and it's that common purpose which breaks down those barriers.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why this pandemic has been such a horrible thing, because in moments of crisis, we turn to communities and sing. And we couldn't do that for such a long time. We couldn't do the one thing that could bring us together and grieve together and hope together in song, right? So I think that was one of the biggest heartaches of not being able to do that these past 15 months. And you're exactly right. I mean, coming together breaks down barriers of creed, of race, of beliefs, of backgrounds. So.
Yeah, it's been such a challenging time. I mean, you think that all we've lost, but whatever one thing, I always I look at history. I'm a history fanatic too, and you look at the plague, the Black Death, and you go through World War II. Afterwards, after great catastrophes and difficult times, music and art is going to rush into that void to help kind of fill it back up. I look forward to seeing what the next chapter is going to be.
Me too. In fact, adversity creates the best artistic expression, right? I joked earlier about how yes, exactly. I joked earlier about how Lent brings out the best, but really, why we're artists is because art is the ultimate expression of our beliefs and our struggles and our joys, right? And how we find a way to translate them into an experience that we can all connect to. I think the biggest joy that we have as musicians is that we're able to do something, and I suppose actors and dancers too, but we do something live, and there's a tangible connection that you make to the audience that you may not even have thought of too, but they glean something from that, and they take it back with them, whether it's happens consciously or subconsciously. If they walk away from it and they start humming a tune, or they go, "Oh, I really love that song. I don't know why I liked it, but I really liked what they just did." It may not even be in the music. It could be just the way we performed it. But that's what we do. We give them this gift of love, and we plant seeds that grow, and make them better people, we hope, but also more fulfilled, and certainly more whole as a person.
Well, I look forward to seeing the seeds that you're planting now as they come to fruition in this next season. I can't wait to see you conduct in person and to see one of your programs. I'm very excited about that.
Thank you.
You're on a desert island. You can bring 3 scores with you. As of for me, it changes every week, but give me a couple of scores that you might bring with you on this desert island.
You asked the toughest questions. Wow, 3 scores. Okay, I'm going to be cliche, and one of them is to be minor mass. I think this Bach. There's no way I can go there without B minor mass score. The scores to the Star Wars trilogy, the original Star Wars trilogy, I think Williams is a
I'm so
genius.
excited. I'm conducting Star Wars Suite again this summer. I just got booked for a Pops concert, and they're doing movies, and I'm like, yes, I get to conduct Star Wars again.
Star Wars, I mean,
I love that music.
I'm torn between Star Wars and E.T., but Star Wars, Williams is such a genius, but I think his Star Wars is the ultimate, the original trilogy is the ultimate expression of like post-Wagner, post-Mahler, you know.
It's a lot of Holst mixed in there, the planets. He certainly loved that.
And that, but all Williams, all Williams.
In a unique synthesis, yep.
Yeah. Gosh, and the third one would be, I don't know, something by Tchaikovsky. Whether it's his Fourth Symphony. There's something about his Fourth Symphony that I cannot go a day without finding a connection to that piece. There's something about I'm a very morose person.
This for me is the Sixth Symphony. I could listen to that every day. I just love that last movement as it dies away and the heartbeat fades away. It's like, kills me.
I have to gossip. When I was studying in Vienna, a lot of my friends would go traveling all over Europe, but I made sure to stay in Vienna all the time and just watch performances. And on the Musikverein, the große Saal stage, you could sit on stage, right, and watch the performances. So I always would find a seat behind the horns and watch the conductor because that's what I wanted to do. And there's a performance of Gergiev doing the Sixth, and I kid you not, he sits there, he stands up there, and he has his hands up there. And he starts to do this. And then at some point...
He's always doing that, yeah.
At some point... And he's still doing this. And I'm like, how are they going to come in with the bassoon,
Jedi mind trick.
But as he sort of like gives the bassoon like an evil eye, because he's going to come, but he couldn't come in. And I thought, I've never seen anything like that before.
I have friends in the Met Orchestra who can't stand that.
Oh my gosh!
But I hear that's a Russian part of the Russian school. I've had this conversation. I was doing my doctorate at Rutgers, and we were doing the we did a whole a series of symphonies, and he conducted. And no, we were doing Mahler's Second. That's what it was. The early, and he was conducting, and he conducted the whole thing with a toothpick.
Really?
Yeah.
It's very Fritz Reiner too.
Very fascinating. The man's, it's like this Jedi mind trick he does at the orchestra. It was his orchestra, so they use.
Yeah, that's true.
They
Although
knew him well.
I tell people, when you know someone that well, he could be doing this, and you know exactly what he wants, right? I mean, that's
as long
the
as the
beauty of
Auftakt is up, you're good. You're good to go.
Exactly.
Get them started. They're going to do it.
As my teacher says in college, the best approach is the me, Tarzan, you, Jane. Fast, slow, loud, soft.
Turn around.
Everything else. Yes, exactly. So.
Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us, Philip, and I can't wait to see you as you return. Hope you come back on the show down the road. I want to hear what the next season is going to look like, and as you regain you get the stage and your groups come back together, and the artistic beauty that's going to come out of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to be back. So thanks again for having me.
Where can people go to find out more about you and to maybe interact with you on social media?
Yeah, so my website is woefully out of date, but phillipcheah.com is still functioning as a website. But right now, a lot of stuff can be found on my Choir of Cheahs page on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and Google Choir of Cheahs, and that's choir spelled Quire, if you care to see that. And really, any Googling of my name will pop me up. Although there's another Phillip Cheah with the exact same spelling from Singapore, who's like some arts festival director or something. So it's one of the two. But if you Google my name, the beauty of having my name is that it's so unique. You can't go wrong with that. So.
Well, so is your music, so that's really wonderful. Thank you so much for spending the time with us.
Jason, that's my pleasure.
Seeing you down the road.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Music Matters. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. We love it when our guests like and share our videos as it tells the story of these wonderful artists. And thank you so much for joining us. We have another show on Thursday. That is Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we have Priyanka Venkatesh, a wonderful violinist from Los Angeles, who is the brother of Vijay Venkatesh, the wonderful pianist who was on our show and part of the Viennese duo. And she's just finished her doctorate at UCLA, and she combines classical music with Indian music in a beautiful and unique combination. So I can't wait to check her out and have her join us. So thank you so much, and remember, keep music alive.
Veni sposa Christi, si per